Hey, where are you? What are you doing? My mom is in trouble.
The voice on the answering machine message came from my husband. My mother-in-law had collapsed and had to be rushed to the hospital by ambulance. When I opened the wardrobe in my mother-in-law's room to prepare for her hospitalization, I saw an unbelievable picture of my husband and sister-in-law. When I saw the picture, my mind went blank and I ran to my parents' house to escape. It had been 3 years since I met my husband. I had been deceived for a long time. My husband did not love me. He just wanted a wife. I could never forgive him. So I decided to divorce him. My name is Sarah. I'm 32 years old and I work at a beauty salon. 4 years ago, I was in a hurry. My friends and colleagues from school were getting married one after another. I wanted to get married while I was still in my 20s. I was tired of hearing about husbands and children from my friends who were married. My friends may not have meant to belittle me, but although I listened to them smiling, there were times I cried on the way home. I was so envious. I hadn't had a boyfriend for a while, and I wondered if I would ever get married. Such thoughts made me feel gloomy and impatient. I had 2 years left in my 20s, so I decided to start marriage activity with all my heart. I think I did most of what I could, such as dating apps and marriage activity parties. I met a lot of people, but it was difficult to meet the right person. The person I liked was not marriage-minded and never got to the point of a relationship. I don't think I have high ideals, but it doesn't work out. I've only ever had friendships and then relationships. I was struggling with the difficulties of marriage activity. In the meantime, my friends were getting married one after another, so I decided to register with the marriage agency. It was expensive, but I thought that there would only be people I really wanted to marry there. That's when I met my husband, Ken. He was 5 years older than me and a refreshingly handsome man working for a prestigious company. It was a wonder that he wasn't married, and from the moment I saw his profile, I knew he was the only man for me.
I signed up because I wanted to get married as soon as possible.
That's what my husband said on the day we first met. Me too. Nice to meet you. I thought he was a refreshing person, just like his profile, polite and nice in the way he talked to me. I appealed to him like never before. I told him that I didn't have much education or work experience, but that I liked doing housework.
I'm too busy with my work to take care of the house, so I want to marry someone like Sarah,
he said with a smile. I was flattered and so happy. Finally.
I actually live alone with my mother. She has a chronic disease, so I can't leave her alone. If we were to get married, I think I would ask her to live with me. I hope you will consider that as well,
he explained politely. I was a little surprised, but I felt that he was sincere in telling me in advance, rather than suddenly telling me after we get married. In my work, I've often dealt with female customers of all ages, so I'm used to dealing with older women. I'm rather good at it. I didn't know what kind of person my future mother-in-law was, but as long as she would meet me, I thought living with her would not be a problem. More importantly, I wanted to get to know Ken better. He seemed to like me and we were able to go on a few dates. The more I met him, the more I thought he was a gentleman and a nice person. I was also able to sit in one dinner and meet his mom. His mom was petite and very pretty. Sarah, you're a lovely lady, and you're too good for Ken. I know you might be nervous about living with me, but you don't have to worry about me. I have a chronic illness, but I don't need nursing care. Next time, let's go out for parfait instead of this nice restaurant, she said. She has a high voice, speaks in a relaxed manner, and we share a love of sweets, so I thought we would hit it off. I no longer felt uneasy about living together. Ken said that he wanted to get married right away, and we started dating on the premise of marriage. Ken was a busy man, constantly working, but he made time for me. We went on trips and spent a lot of time together. Even after seeing his face right after waking up, my impression of him was still the same as it was when I first met him. He was refreshing. The more I saw him, the more I liked him. His mom and I became such good friends that we even went out for sweets together. She takes a lot of medication, but she's full of energy and young. I was worried about her though, because she has to wait in line at popular restaurants. Don't worry, I'm looking forward to it. I can't wait to taste food so good that I have to wait in line, she said with a big smile on her face. Treating her like a friend, I sometimes forgot about the age difference in their relationship. She told me that her mother-in-law had been divorced twice and that she had had some difficulties when she was younger. We dated for around 6 months and then got married. I was happy that we were able to get married just barely in our 20s, and from the bottom of my heart, I was glad that I had worked so hard on my marriage activities. We quickly registered our marriage and began preparing to live together. Then one day, my husband told me there was something he needed to talk to me about. I wondered what was going on and had a bit of a bad feeling about it.
I never told you this before, but I have a sister, Hannah, who is not related to me by blood.
At first, I didn't quite understand what he meant. Hannah was my husband's stepfather's daughter. My mother-in-law and father-in-law divorced 5 years ago. My father-in-law is dead and Hannah has no family. My mother-in-law and Hannah don't get along well, so she never comes to my in-laws' house. But my husband says he's worried about my sister-in-law, who has no family and keeps in touch with her.
I'd like to invite her to the wedding, but my mom hates her and is against it. But she means a lot to me, and I want to introduce her to you at least once,
he said. I was worried about what kind of a person my mother-in-law, who was so kind to me, would hate. But I could see how much my husband cared about his family, so I decided to meet her. Nice to meet you, Sarah. I'm Hannah. She was a very beautiful and flamboyant-looking person. She said she worked at a bar. I couldn't believe that my mother-in-law disliked her. She was not at all unpleasant and cheerfully made the occasion more enjoyable. When Ken was in middle school and I was in high school, we started living together. Isn't it like a comic book that we suddenly became a family?
Hannah, what do you mean, like in a comic book? I was a nervous teenager.
Hannah told me stories about the days she lived with Ken, and Ken would make fast-paced quips about her stories. Perhaps because they were so beautiful, they seemed like a perfect couple. I could tell that she was very dear to my husband. Sarah, I'm sorry I couldn't make it to your wedding. Be a good wife, Hannah said to me as we parted.
Don't tell my mother about today. If she gets angry, it will be a pain in the butt,
Ken said on the way home. I don't know what kind of conflict there is between my mother-in-law and Hannah, but I don't think it's any of my business. I decided not to tell anyone about my meeting with Hannah and kept it to myself. And so life began for the three of us. Ken was still busy with work and came home late every day. Sometimes, when he had a day off, he would go out with my mother-in-law and I, just the three of us. I was also working, so I did the housework in cooperation with my mother-in-law, and sometimes we went out to eat sweets or see a movie together. By all accounts, we were a happy family. I was a little worried about my mother-in-law because sometimes when she wasn't feeling well, she would sleep all day. I tried to keep in touch with her frequently while I was at work. The only thing that bothered me when we started living together was that Ken was always looking at his phone. He's almost always on his phone doing something, except when he comes home and is eating. He seems to bring his phone into the bath as well. At first, I didn't mind because I thought maybe he was addicted to playing games, but it was so much that I began to worry about it. One time, he called me to say he was heading out, and I called him back because I wanted him to get me something at the convenience store, but his phone was engaged the whole time. I couldn't get through to him on the phone, and then he came back. Ken, I've been calling you all day, I said.
Sorry, I got a call from the company,
he said. We had just gotten married, and I didn't think it was possible that he was cheating on me, but I couldn't help but be curious. My mother-in-law didn't seem to be bothered by it, as if it was a normal occurrence. One day, I felt bad, but I glanced at the screen of his phone and saw that he was texting someone. It seemed that they talked often. One night, Ken came home late, and I wondered who he was talking to in the middle of the night. Hey, who do you always talk with in the middle of the night? I asked, pretending to be silly, after my mother-in-law went to bed. Ken seemed unbothered by my question.
It's my sister. Did you suspect me of cheating on you? Ho ho ho. Don't worry.
He laughed. I laughed along with him and thought I had lost it by worrying too much. From then on, I didn't care how much he was on his phone. But he was always busy with work and didn't have much time to spend with me. And I was a little uncomfortable with him spending nearly all his free time with Hannah. 2 years later, life with the three of us was going well. My mother-in-law and I would always visit the sweet store whenever it opened. Today's pancakes might be the best pancakes of all time. I was thinking the same thing. I can't wait to try them with you. If a stranger saw us, they wouldn't think we were mother and daughter. I never once felt self-conscious about the fact that we lived together, and I loved my mother-in-law. Ken is still busy with work and comes home late. He's on his phone all the time. I was used to it by now, and I didn't say anything. I'm not asking him to do the housework, but I did accumulate small complaints that if he had time to contact Hannah, he could at least put the socks he took off in the laundry. However, when Ken had time off, we made time for our family, and he never forgot to celebrate our wedding anniversary or my birthday. Although there were small complaints, we were still a happy family. Then one day, my mother-in-law was sick and spent the day in bed. I was worried and went to check on her several times. She seemed to sleep quietly during the day, but in the evening, "Sarah, I'm in pain," she complained. She was breathing hard. I called an ambulance in a hurry. The ambulance arrived immediately and I rode in it to the hospital. I was relieved when I found out that she wasn't in critical condition. I called Ken to let him know that she was going to be hospitalized for a while. He left work early to go to the hospital, and I decided to go home and pack to stay with my mother-in-law in the hospital for a few days. Upon returning home, I opened the wardrobe in my mother-in-law's room to prepare her insurance card and personal seal. My mother-in-law said they were in the top drawer, but I couldn't find them, so I opened the bottom drawer. Then I found a small box in there. I opened the box thinking it might contain an insurance card and found a large number of photographs in it. I was so shocked when I saw them that I went to the bathroom and threw up. There were pictures of Ken and Hannah in it. It wasn't a picture of them as brother and sister. It was a picture of them as lovers. They were holding hands and kissing each other, and I felt sick just looking at a few of the pictures, so I closed the box. It was painful to think about the fact that he had been in close contact with Hannah up until this point. My mind went blank, and the next thing I knew, I was running to my parents' house with that box in my arms. At my parents' house was my mother, who was surprised to see me. When my mother saw what was in the box, she hugged me. After crying for a while, she saw that I had calmed down. "These pictures of Ken and another woman. Is he cheating?" she asked me. My mother was surprised when I told her that it was Hannah and that it was in the wardrobe in my mother-in-law's room. I hadn't even told my mother that I had a sister-in-law. "I can't live with him anymore," I said to my mother. She said, "Of course you can't live with him. I can't allow it." My mother was also angry. When I looked at my phone, I found a lot of incoming calls from Ken and a voicemail message that said,
"Hey, where are you? What are you doing when your mother is in trouble?"
The message was an angry one. I thought, I'm the one who should be angry. I turned off my phone that day because talking about it would remind me of the pictures and make me sick. The next day, out of the goodness of my heart, I contacted him. "There's something I need to talk to you about this evening. I'll be there with my mother, so please call Hannah," I told him.
"Thank goodness, she's alive. I wondered what you were going to say when my mother was in trouble."
He started blabbing on and on. "Please do. I'll see you at night." I hung up the phone. As soon as I hung up the phone, I went to my mother-in-law's hospital room. "Sarah!" My mother-in-law looked at me happily and called my name. "I'm sorry you're not feeling well, mother-in-law, but I wanted to hear the truth." I opened the box I found in my mother-in-law's wardrobe and showed it to her. Then my mother-in-law began to shed tears. "Sarah, I am so sorry, Ken. He has an older sister. She's the stepdaughter of my ex-husband, and 5 years ago, she told me that they were lovers. Even though they're not related, they're both my children. I told them I couldn't allow that to happen. Hannah got angry and left the house, and I never saw her again. I should have told you. But they're old photos, don't worry. I don't even know what Hannah is doing now, and I'm sure she's not in contact with Ken," she said. My mother-in-law had straight eyes and didn't look like she was lying. Ken is still in contact with Hannah. In fact, he introduced me to her once, years ago. When I said this, my mother-in-law shed another large tear. "But you're already married." "I'm sorry. You did nothing wrong, but I can't be a family with Ken anymore. I'm going to divorce him." "Don't apologize to me. It's my fault for not noticing. I'm sorry," my mother-in-law said. I couldn't stop crying either. I left the hospital room and went to the house where my mother, Ken, and Hannah were waiting. When I arrived, they were all waiting for me. I sat down and immediately showed them the pictures. "You two are lovers, and I'm divorcing you." Ken didn't seem offended and said,
"Oh, yes. Yes, that's right. Me as a family member and me as a lover are two different things. We were happy as a family, weren't you?" Mom was happy too. What's wrong with that? We don't have to get divorced,
he said with his usual fresh smile. Hannah too. I'm sorry I didn't tell you, but I have no intention of destroying your family. I don't think divorce is necessary, she said. I was trembling with anger as I listened to what they were saying. Don't be silly. This is cheating. How can I be family with someone like that? I yelled at them in a loud voice.
Well, don't be so loud. If you want a divorce, that's fine. I've done my duty as a family member. Since you're the one who initiated it, it's an amicable divorce.
Ken said something I didn't understand. What? What's amicable about this? This is a huge betrayal. I'm going to charge both of you alimony.
Oh, okay. That's fine. I'll pay as much money as you want. In return, don't tell my mother. As for the reason for divorce, let's just call it a personality conflict.
I've already told your mother everything. She was crying. I told her we're getting a divorce.
What? Why would you do that?
Hearing my words, he lost his composure and shouted loudly. Hannah too. Why did you tell her? She cried. My lawyer will contact you about the alimony, so goodbye. With that, I left the house with my mother. My mother said, You did a great job. She hugged me. I cried loudly into her chest. Now I know that Ken didn't care about me from the beginning. He just wanted a wife to reassure his mother. I wanted to marry him too, and maybe we were happy as a family, but I can't forgive myself for not knowing that I had been betrayed ever since we met. I'm glad that I realized it now and was able to get a divorce. Later, through my lawyer, the divorce was successfully finalized. I requested alimony from Ken and Hannah, but Hannah didn't have any money and was angry at Ken for only paying his share of the alimony. Their relationship soon deteriorated and they decided to separate. Hannah couldn't afford to pay the alimony, so she started working lunch and dinner shifts at the bar where she originally worked. After she was discharged from the hospital, my mother-in-law was angry with Ken and told him that if he sees Hannah even once in the future, she will cut ties with him. My mother-in-law and I still keep in touch and we occasionally go out for sweets. I'm relieved that she is out of the hospital and seems to be in good health. I now live with my parents. I'm busy preparing for the reopening at the beauty salon where I used to work. When things settle down a bit more, I'll start living alone again. I'm no longer envious when I hear about my friends who are married. Until the day comes when I meet someone wonderful again, I'll keep working hard.